So was it all for revenge, you think, Indy, for RFK Jr. Endorsing Trump? You think it was all about revenge?
No, it was all about his own ego and getting himself something out of the 2024 run. But revenge was nice. It was a nice dish, best served somewhat cold.
I'd say lukewarm. But he actually brought this up here. So I want to bring up this interview because they do talk about, or RFK Jr. does talk a little bit about why he did what he did. And I look, my take on it, especially for Friday, is what he did on that day on Friday and what Tulsi Gabbard also did on the following Monday was take away a lot of the momentum from the Kamala Harris DNC convention here in Chicago momentum. So like they ended it.
Protect public health and particularly children's health.
Let me go back to your
Except,
now, hold on.
My only argument is I don't think that anybody who was on board with any of those people would have had their momentum taken away by any of those people. Honestly.
Yeah. Now, I do want to pull this up here as well because I'm going to play this video. I know that the volume's a little bit low, so when I clip this, I will raise up the volume on this. So apologies if you cannot hear this, but this was the only one I could find. Maybe we could put in closed captioning. So let's do this.
Protect public health and particularly children's health.
I'm going to go back to your decision from Friday. Both you and Nicole Shanahan, your running mate, have talked about how you feel like the Democrats completely mistreated you, excluded you from the process. How much of your decision Friday is about revenge or motivated by punishing Democrats in some way?
Zero. I don't act in anything in my life. I don't act out of anger or revenge or resentment. It's a bad motivation. It's like swallowing poison and hoping someone else will die. And so I don't do it. I am very pragmatic and practical, and I am focused on one thing, which is how do we restore health for our children? And that touches many, many other issues. How do we regenerate our soils in this country? How do we protect small family farmers? The incentives are all going to commodity agriculture, and that's what is feeding this chronic disease epidemic. The processed foods that are created by commodity agriculture. So we need to do all of these things at once. Protect small farmers, restore our soils, regenerative agriculture, and to get the corruption out of the federal government and make these agencies do what they were created to do, which is to protect our health and not serve the mercantile interests of the pharmaceutical companies and the processed food industry.
So they're going to put him in charge of the FDA. Basically, that's what I'm hearing is Trump's going to make him either in charge of the FDA or something having to do with the Health Services Administration. That's likely the deal. He's not getting the CIA. Come on.
No.
That's hilarious.
That's not going to happen. If anything, because the only other position that we thought, this was on Larry Sharp show, that if it were to happen, and I don't see it happening, Larry Sharp and a couple people on the panel brought up the idea of him, RFK Jr., being Attorney General, which I don't see that happening either, unless Trump has learned his lesson from 2016 by having people of the Bush-Cheney administration. Again, this was his major fault, and also the fault for the people of the Bush-Cheney administration, because they thought Trump would be a Bush Jr., and that Pence would be running the show like how Cheney was running the show. And that wasn't the case at all. Trump surrounded himself with supposedly yes people. And where do you think most of the leaks came from? A lot of people associated with Bush and Cheney. Maybe, possibly, but I don't see Trump putting Tulsi or Elon or RFK Jr. as key members of his administration. If that does happen, I will be surprised and I'll be like, okay, wow, maybe he's going to put in people that will support him, but also, challenge him critically on some issues to which he will be more biddable and listen. I don't see that happening because this is Donald Trump we're talking about. It would be a sight that has not been seen before, but okay, fine. But I don't think it's about revenge. I think it's more of about pride, ego, and also, yes, RFK Jr., there's a couple of things he does believe in, but this is also, his way strategically to get back at the Democrats, because look at all the stuff that the Democrats did to him, not only running a Democratic primary, but as an independent. And, as I mentioned on Larry Sharp show, I'm all for petty revenge, but this is more than just revenge. I think this is more of, okay, Democrats, you want to play this game. And the Democrats seem to have forgotten how to play it. So I want to play this segment here as well.
Actively, I think President Trump is going to make a series of announcements about other Democrats who are joining his campaign, and you know, I want to make America healthy again, and so does President Trump. So those are objectives. You know, the Wall Street Journal may be worried about shareholder value for pharmaceutical companies, and I think, you know, I talked specifically to President Trump about that issue, and he said that he wanted to leave as his legacy healthy children, and that, you know, that that he was unconcerned about the other implications. Being actively.
So okay, he's looking to get more people, Democrats, to be on board. Your thoughts, Indy?
Well, again, Kamala's making it easy for them. You know, nobody really wants to be holding the bag after 2024 that they were on Team Kamala, on the losingest ticket in the history of the country. I think she might actually like rival Mondale in 1984. I really do. And I think that Trump is still so hated, but people are so disgusted by what Harris did. Once it's pointed out to them, look, America's brainwashed right now, because if they're watching corporate media, they don't even realize, like, it just got glossed over the fact that they replaced the candidate with somebody that nobody asked for and never could have gotten through the primary on their own. Like, why does this woman need to be helped constantly in order to be put into a position of power? Well, we know why, because she represents the worst people on the planet, and that's what they want.
Well, she also, the reason why they're helping out so much is because I'm pretty sure there has to be some strategist that remembers her 2020 performance. It was abysmal. I mean, it started off with a bang, and I keep bringing up this story. I was at Chicago University, not the University of Chicago, but Chicago University, and this was covering the 2019 Chicago mayoral debate. This was, or it was a forum. This was when Lightfoot was still a brand new candidate. She, you know, again, this was the early stages of it. And on that same day, it was Martin Luther King Day. Kamala made her announcement, and it was all this fanfare and buzz and excitement about Kamala Harris. And then it started dying down. And anytime she spoke, people were turned off by it. And I think there's a couple of Democrats that have to remember, like, hey, you know, the more Kamala speaks, you know, she's terrible. And not to mention, lowest approved vice president in U.S. history. I want to
worse than Quayle, worse than Cheney, worse than Pence. Oof.
Exactly. Oof, indeed. But I want to pull up this one as well. This is an interview that, by the way, Cuomo, I see your game here, because I was going to play this video about Cuomo talking about third parties and independence and corruption. Like, Cuomo, are you trying to steal my stick here?
Yes, he is. Wait,
at the DNC convention, that was like, hey, guys, did you know there's money in politics? You don't say, Cuomo. You don't say. Really? Hey. You figured it out? Go ahead, Indy.
Fuck Fredo.
No, but what were you going to say, my friend?
Yeah, Chris Cuomo, like, yes, he is exactly trying to steal your job and your thunder by calling himself an independent after working for corporate media for all that time and still working for corporate media and pushing their bullshit talking points and then trying to defend the shit that he did while being a paid propagandist.
Yes. And I want to make a correction here. Yes, Chicago State University. I'm sorry. That's the one I was at. I was covering it solo. So if you remember Hard Lens Media way back in the day when, you know, we used to still somewhat be on radio just a little bit, I went to do an audio recording of that event, and that's the day it took place. But I was there on the day. So Chicago State University, not Chicago University. So sorry, Pat Brannigan, I got it wrong. But yes, that's the place. So here's Cuomo. Cuomo, Fredo, you and I have to have an Italian sit down, man. I don't like what's going on.
Before you even start on that, I'm sorry. Nicole Shanahan, by the way, the only reason why she's there is that she was the highest bidder for Booby's VP slot. I wrote an article about this I looked up FEC filings. Basically, the only reason why, and I can't prove it, but there was a sweepstakes for who was going to be his VP, and they all had big money. Booby basically said that he needed $15 million to continue on the campaign, and there was a loophole that the vice president can give an unlimited amount of money to the campaign. Mm-hmm. The day after she accepted the nomination, she donated $2 million to the campaign. 4 days later, on April 1st, the beginning of the FEC filing that wouldn't be noticed for more than 90 days, she gave another $10 million. All right. In total, she gave over $12.5 million to the campaign in order to basically become the VP on the ticket so that she would be interviewed like this and raise her national profile. Now, who is she exactly? Well, we don't know very much about her other than the fact that she was married to Sergey Brin, who's a Google co-founder, and they have a kid together. Go ahead, continue now.
And I wonder how she got all that money.
Well, maybe from a divorce, possibly. I don't know. She was already doing big philanthropy stuff, probably with his money beforehand. I don't know.
Well, okay. Anyways, let's hear this sit down that Fredo had with Nicole. Fredo, you and me need to speak later.
So, how did you feel about suspending the campaign and joining Trump? Just to be transparent, I thought you guys, or at least Bobby, should have endorsed nobody because I thought it would have given you more juice for the duration of this campaign because you guys would have been commentators in chief and you could have endorsed later in the process, but he decided to do it now. Were you in favor, and if so, why?
Let's be clear. The power of a third party, an independent movement, is to endorse ideas, not people. I'm not a Kamala Democrat, nor am I a Trump Republican. What I am is an independent American laser focused on the issues. What we did on Friday was amazing because we crossed the chasm. We found somebody who was willing to put these ideas on center stage. Millions of people, for the first time, heard Bobby's voice. Millions of people were starting to acknowledge how big of an issue the chronic health disease crisis is in this country. This is not a fringe issue anymore. Bobby is not a fringe person as he's been mired by the MSM. He is front and center focusing on what Americans care about most. And he had almost 30,000 people on stage on Friday.
I like Sulamoon right here. Independent, my ass.
Well, no, she is clearly independent. She's uniparty. Okay, yeah. It doesn't matter. The letter next to their name does not matter. They are the wealthy. They are the elite. They flip-flop. Look at Charlie Crist, who went from from Republican to independent to Democrat. This is a pathway. Okay, and they just go back and forth. She's not a Republican. She's not a Democrat. No, she's just an oligarch.
Exactly.
Who bought her way into the system, just like you and I could do, right, Kit? Totally fair and just.
Yeah, fair and just. Hey, by the way, support the Aurelian Party. We're going to restore America again, folks, just like Aurelian restored Rome.
Shouting his name. And, President Trump, to his credit, put out a hand, shook his hand and said, let's do this. Let's engage on ideas that matter. Let's engage on policies that matter.
What ideas?
We don't have to agree on everything. This is not us being absorbed into the Trump camp by any measure. This is a partnership.
Yes,
this is a meeting of the minds with strong boundaries and expectations.
Pause.
She's also been left out in the cold, by the way. I don't believe that she's been offered any kind of a slot whatsoever, which is why she's not endorsing Trump. But Booby is.
Yes, exactly. And also, real quick here, I do want to pull up a couple comments here from Rumble. Let's see if I can get these set up here, because again, everything's going so fast. But Rumble ran. I can't pull it up here right now. But the best analog for the U.S. election was written by the great Canadian band Rush. You can choose from the phantom fears and kindness that can kill. Rushton tells you who to vote for if you choose not to decide.
Not to decide. You still have made a choice.
That's right, J.K. Michael.
I love you, J.K. Michael. I'm a Rush fanatic, so thank you. I appreciate that very much.
EJ Image says, keep on keeping on, Kit. Thank you for $50. Oh my God, $50.
EJ Imagine.
Thank you.
EJ Imagine. You can put that super chat up, no?
Yeah, I think I can. Hang on, let me find it here. EJ Imagine.
It should be in your list.
It should. Yes.
Now that we can put Rumble rants up on screen, it should have a little green thing next to it.
Yes. I'm looking for the Rumble. Bumble.
Somebody knows that I'm a fan of Rush for sure.
Yes, exactly. Free Will Rush. No, that's Cheese Slice.
That's cheese. That's over on the YouTubes.
Yes. No. Actually, no. That's on Rumble.
Oh, nice.
But anyways, let's play a little bit more of this video.
What are the boundaries?
Well, I think the thing is we don't overlap perfectly, but we do overlap on 5 key things, and we got to stick to those 5 key things. That is free speech, very important. Anti-war, ending these endless wars we're in overseas, putting that money back into America, putting Americans first, really trying to figure out how to create stability in our foreign policy. Chronic health, obviously, this is the biggest one. We want families to know that they are going to be met with credible health care, honest healthcare, and no more censorship. That's a really, really big one. So as long as we stay within these core principles of this coalition, we're going to do great things. And I have great optimism.
Yeah, I got a bridge to sell you too. I also want to pull this up here as well. You sent me this from Whitney Webb. Given all the hype about RFK Jr.'s team up with Trump and what it means for healthcare, I have some questions. Many funders of Trump, such as Joe Lansdale and Elon Musk, as well as J.D. Vance himself, have major investments in biotechnology, gene therapies, and companies deeply invested in mRNA and DNA vaccine technology. Trump stands by Operation Warp Speed, which produced mRNA vaccines and of dubious efficiency and safety, some of which were made with the help of companies tied to Lansdale's VC, among others. Will RFK Jr. be opposing the use of these technologies as he seeks to tackle the chronic disease epidemic in the U.S. in a future Trump administration? Will he allow the health DARPA, ARPH to continue to operate? Yeah, ARPA-H. Will he allow the Peter Thiel and the Joe Lansdale co-founded Palantir to continue to collect and analyze America's health data and genetic data with no meaningful oversight into how they use that data, and if they share it with other government agencies they contract for, like the CIA? I agree that there is a major healthcare crisis in the U.S., but identifying the problem is one thing. Will these experimental technologies be used to promote as part of the solution? I think it's important to know, and it seems like not many are asking these types of questions, which is something, hey, Fredo, you should have asked.
Indy, well, Fredo's not smart enough. Fredo's not nearly smart enough to ask that question.
Hey, he's smart. Also, he's capable. He's not as dumb as everyone says.
Listen, he works for News Nation, which is corporate media for millennials, by the way. And we talked about that last time. They're owned by Nexstar Media, which owns The Hill. All right. They also own News Nation. It's all part of a big conglomerate. Joe Lansdale and Peter Thiel run Palantir. And if you read Whitney Webb's, one of her latest articles about how bad J.D. Vance is, what she's really doing is going into the history of Peter Thiel and how he created Palantir out of a CIA DARPA program called Total Information Awareness. All right. Total Information Awareness became Palantir, which is the facial recognition stuff and very creepy, very deep dive into data profiling people. They're also, by the way, partners in Rumble. So everything that we say and do on Rumble is being ingested into this big database where they can then profile you based upon your history. They also want access to all of your DMs through all these different platforms to put a central portfolio together of who you are, and then be able to use this for pre-crime, what they're going to use under the auspices of either health or terrorism. But they want to know in advance and be able to predict your behavior based upon what your statements are, what you're saying, and their predictive models, which is really scary. And oh yeah, that has, like Whitney says, no government oversight. And if you think that the Biden administration is going to stop this, you know, what she was talking about, this health initiative, there was an initiative under the Trump administration called HARPA that did not make it through. That was this total health information awareness. Well, Biden ended up putting it in and called it ARPA-H. He just moved the letter to the end, but it's literally the exact same program, greenlit by the Biden administration.
What could possibly, my friends, go wrong? So
read Whitney Webb, Unlimited Hangout. She's amazing. If you haven't read Whitney Webb's stuff, give her a sub, a follow. She's the queen.
I would recommend that as well. So what can I take away from this? Was there petty revenge? I don't know, maybe a dash of it. But for RFK Jr. to support Trump, I mean, you have your options. Do you bankrupt yourself constantly fighting these legal battles with the Democratic Party? Or do you upend their entire strategy and endorse their rival? And look, I wish we would have something different than the two-party system. But if this was a way to strategically get ahead of the Democrats, I think RFK Jr. and by some extent Tulsi Gabbard doing this for Trump is a boon for his campaign. And while it's being downplayed and being dismissed by the establishment media, we cannot underestimate the fact that, you know, there is a growing, I guess, disdain for Kamala at this point, because she is yet to do a real big interview until later on this week. And even then, she's getting her hand held by her VP. And then she's asking for help for the debate, now hoping to get some extra questions or do a cheat sheet, which that's not allowed to happen. So I think this was a strategic move. There wasn't any petty revenge. But at the end of the day, who's going to win, Indy? It's the establishment, because Goldman Sachs, Wall Street, the big banks, all of them, they're going to have a seat at the table. So what was your response for this election? None of the above, right?
Right. And let me just say one thing. You know, we know that there were some fence riders when it came to force the vote and when it came to Jimmy Dore versus TYT type of stuff. And those fence riders ended up crushed by both sides, effectively. All right. I think that that's what the Kennedy campaign saw. And they realized that they were riding the fence between these two campaigns, and they needed to pick a side or they were going to get crushed by both. So they decided to pick a side. I don't think that Shanahan is on that side necessarily, but I think she's already invested $12.5 million in Booby, and she's still on the vote on the ballot in states where they, you know, it's a red state or a blue state that's a non-swing state. So she's got to keep appearances up. She can't bail on Booby completely because A, she gave him that kind of money, and to undermine him at this point doesn't help anybody. Whereas if she continues to pump him up, maybe he'll do something for her. But I feel like Trump just did not want anything to do with her at this point. At some point, she's good looking enough, young enough, and rich enough. She'll come up again, and he'll accept her, and he'll bring her into something that she wants to do. And maybe it's Kennedy that suggests how she does that. Buying her way into the system, but for $12.5 million, and for her who's worth 9 figures, it's a pittance.
You know, let's face it. Unfortunately, our system is run by money. And folks, if you could buy your way into politics, welcome to Roman politics, because that's where we're at.